Hello, everyone. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And we have November's Book of the Month author, Alisha Rai, with us today. Hello.
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 We read Partners in Crime and we loved it so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it was your first rom-com, I think, and also like a caper book. So I was going to ask you, was it challenging writing a rom-com versus a straight like contemporary romance?
Not really. I mean, I think my other romances are pretty like, they have the same kind of sense of humor woven through them and are fun. I would say that the toughest part is like kind of reconciling a rom-com with like a suspensey type plot. I feel like a lot of my other books are more internally driven. I think this one was more plot driven and how that affected the characters. So yeah, I would say that was probably the hardest part. Like, pulling, I had like a giant whiteboard. I was writing on like the windows with dry erase marker. Like it was, trying to keep all the threads straight.
Did you have a timeline? Because it takes place in such a short amount of time, most of the book.
Yeah, that was hard. Originally, I had it taking place over a longer period of time, and that was easier. But I felt that it lacked some of the snappiness of the book. I felt like it weighed down the pacing a little bit. So I changed it, and it was really complicated making sure that everything fit. But like I had it timed like down to the minute, and you'll notice there's not a lot of like timestamps in the book, and every time that the copy editor would be like, is this plausible? And I was like, don't worry, it's all plausible. Like I promise you they can get
like I have worked it out.
You're like I have painstakingly figured it out.
Yeah, I was like, I've driven the route, like I've got this.
Wow.
Don't worry. Like I know exactly how long it'll take them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, okay, they've showered twice. But they didn't get to sleep till like way late. And I'm like, stay. They must be dead tired.
Never ending. Yeah.
And well, it's like an episode of 24 where you're just like, there's more. What else is happening?
Yes. Yeah. I tried to, I think 24 was like a good inspiration for writing this, because it really is like hour by hour, like where are they going and what's going to happen. But yeah, it was, I would say that was probably the biggest challenge, was just making sure the timelines added up and making sure the plot didn't get too outlandish. A little outlandish is fine.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads into my question, which was, what came first, the couple or the caper?
Oh, the couple definitely came first.
Okay.
Like I feel like I always have the couple come first, and then everything builds around it. And then, sometimes I'll tweak them a little bit as the plot unravels, but for the most part, I feel like it's easier to like have personalities in mind and then say, well, if this happens, how would these people react to this happen, X happening, instead of, well, they're going to react this way, so X has to happen. Like it's got to be
right.
Better to show their reaction, I think, than to build a plot first and then try to work them into it.
That makes sense to me. Just because, especially because these characters had so much backstory together and apart. Like they had secrets, they had like traumas, and both of them were like working through some things. So
yes,
it probably would have been hard to fit them into a preordained
yes plot. Very much so. Yeah, they definitely came first.
And did you always know it would be a second chance romance, or was that something you discovered after you kind of felt them out as characters?
No, originally it was supposed to be a first chance romance. Like this was supposed to be their meet cute, and then I was like, that is way too complicated for me to figure out in one night. So it became a second chance romance. I tend to like characters, like writing characters who have met beforehand in some way. I feel like it's more interesting for me to write them. Even though I love reading all kinds of books, but I do love reading, like writing a good second chance romance, because I think there's really something cool about the idea of like, right person, wrong time.
I always, not always, but I've heard Sarah MacLean say a couple times that she tends to always ask herself, like, why can't these people be together right now? And I felt like in your book, their history together was a lot of why they couldn't be together right now. Like we see them be attracted to each other really early on. And I almost had the feeling that if it was a first chance at love, that they would have like probably gotten together faster because they were so like immediately attracted to each other and interested in each other. But they had like, last time this didn't work out so well.
Right. Yeah. It throws a good stumbling block. Yeah. I think in their path. Yeah.
For sure.
I was curious because I feel like you wrote this book before you got married and before you were engaged and all of that. But there were I mean, there's a lot of like because I've been stalking you on Instagram, I've seen you like in Vegas and I'm like, was there inspiration? Like, was there crossover, do you think, between like, your research for like your book?
Absolutely. So it was, the first time I went to Vegas was about like 2 years ago. And it was like our first, vacation as a couple, because we only met shortly before the pandemic started, so we didn't really get to go anywhere or do anything. So many months into the pandemic, we went to Vegas and just hung out in a hotel room, and I thought it was like the coolest city I'd ever been in. Like, it was so glitzy and glamorous and stuff. And then the next time we went, we got to like go outside of our hotel room and, go see the Strip and go out to Fremont and go, to all these cool places that were not maybe where always like the tourists go, and places where people just lived and are normal people. And, it's a cool idea to have a city where there's such a like iconic, like skyline, and it just looms over like everybody who just lives there and, is the normal person there, and not like a showgirl or whatever they might be, or a tourist. And so I really like that idea. So I think the inspiration came from our trips, just to set it there, because I was like, oh man, this is like the perfect place for like an adventure. Like, this is an adventurous city, and it doesn't really sleep. Like, it's open all night, kind of like New York City, which is, another great place for an adventure. So I was like, it's got to be set here. Like, there's no question about that. Like, it's got to be in Vegas. And so definitely the location and the setting, like, all of that overlapped. And so yeah, I was kind of writing it around the same time. I started writing it maybe in 2021, probably early in the year. And so, definitely overlapped with my own, research trips there. And
that's cool. It felt very like, there's some cities that, because they're so touristy, like it feels like it's different if you grew up there versus if you are just a visitor. But it felt like you took us to like out the back way in the parts that were not touristy. So I was curious if it was a thing that that came from your own travels.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure I got things wrong, and, Las Vegas locals are free to tell me what I got wrong. I love to learn.
I've never been to Vegas, but I felt like you took us to like the old like spots and out in the desert, and it was cool.
Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it was really important to me. I feel like I really love the city, and I really wanted it to be like a character in its own right. So hopefully that came across.
Yeah. I mean, they had some adventures that I don't know if they could have had all together in any other place.
Yeah, exactly.
Like through the desert, the diners that like run down diner in the middle of nowhere, and then they're sneaking into like, what was that? It was like a strip club,
a giant strip club. Yeah.
And, like everything,
and the casino, and it was
so
like
much, right, that they can't do otherwise.
Yeah, that was really
fun. Oh, sorry. Do you have a question? I was just gonna ask if you I feel like you've been doing lots this year with you have a YA book that you announced, and then also you've been doing a podcast, Love Struck Daily. How do you do so many things, and which of those things do you like? I guess I answered that and then I'll think of what my other question was.
Well,
Sorry.
we did wrap on the podcast, which is unfortunate because I love to talk to Sarah every week if possible, Sarah Wendell. So that's one thing like off my plate. But yeah, I wrote both books. My YA comes out in March. It's called While You Were Dreaming, and I wrote it side by side with Partners in Crime, which I do not ever recommend doing to myself again. So I won't be doing that again ever. But it was very much a thing where like the contracts kind of just lined up at almost the same time. And luckily both editors were very kind about giving me extensions when I needed them, and making sure that the dates worked out and everything. So it all worked out in the end. But yeah, it was a lot. I don't know. I feel like usually my contractual obligations motivate me better than anything else. I'm kind of a master procrastinator otherwise. So when I'm like, okay, well, I have to do this or I'll be on the hook for money, then I'm like, okay, well, then you have to do it. And so I do it. But otherwise, yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I feel like I never know how I get anything done. Every time I open like a new book to write, I'm like, I've never written a book. I don't know how to do this.
Like,
So
what do I do?
It's yeah, I'm like, man, this is like new territory for me. And then somebody has to be like, you've done this many times before. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I've done this many times. but
can be done.
It is very much, yeah, it can be done. But it is like a thing where, I always feel like I'm wildly unproductive. So I'm always startled when someone's like, you did a lot. I'm like, oh,
you did do a lot though. I mean, I'm like planned a wedding. I saw you like building centerpieces on the internet.
Yeah.
I feel like
the centerpiece. Yes, I glued all my centerpieces together. It was like candles, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was.
Let me be impressed.
Yes. I used to be a florist, so I wasn't that impressed.
Oh,
I was also like, I'm enough of a worrywart and like, type of person that I was like, I cannot outsource flowers because I will freak out that they're not exactly the way I want them. And I can't do them myself because I don't have time. So it was very much like, we're just going to do candles and we're going to call it a day. Okay. And we did candles. It was beautiful. We called it a day and it was very nice. I'm very much a fan of that when you do have a lot on your plate, is just to be like, okay, this is just going to have to be good enough. I mean, not with my books, I don't do that, but like with things like centerpieces, where I'm like, it doesn't have to be the most amazing thing in the world. It just has to be good enough to look nice and to satisfy whatever itches in your brain.
Right.
But yeah, very much a fan of like, okay, if you can't be an A+ star in everything you do, it's okay to take like a B here and there.
I feel like candle centerpieces though, like once you light the candles, it's probably all like shiny.
Yeah, it looks really pretty.
Like, it's a spot. No one's gonna get too close to it. So
yeah.
Right. And nobody's gonna get, and like that's the thing.
One.
Like you have to, that was something that I had to like remind myself a lot in wedding planning, where I was like, nobody's gonna look that close to this. Like you are the only one looking at this that closely. And so it was like an exercise of being like, this has to be good enough to like, make you happy and then move on to the next thing. Because you just don't.
Well, like I also saw like issues with, and I feel like weddings are always full of, and I mean, mine was a long time ago, and I was very like, as long as we get married, it's like, I'm not going to worry. But there was still like people trying to force me to worry or like asking questions about stuff where they're like, I want to bring like my so-and-so's cousin. So, and I'm like, who is that? And like, don't make me have to tell you.
Can I tell you, we had 2 people crash our wedding that we do not know who they are.
Really?
So someone just brought someone. So we're like,
oh my gosh.
We've been trying to figure it out because I am praying that they are unmarried, and when they get married, I am just gonna bring
all of your siblings with you.
Like, all your siblings, your in-laws. Like,
if we don't have a child at that point, I'm gonna birth a child and I'm gonna bring it with me. Like, I don't care. We must find out who brought those people so I can take my revenge. That's all I care about.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So yeah, there was like, and it felt like people, I don't know what goes on, like when people hear a wedding, they just like, it's like a free for all in their minds, and I'm like, it's actually a very carefully coordinated event. And if you just
Very
have someone
carefully.
sit down at a table that they are not supposed to sit at, it's going to throw the whole table off. So.
Oh
You have to just like, don't look. Did you see it did you see those people in the pictures, or were you aware of them during the wedding?
No, we saw them in the pictures. And the funny thing is, one of them, so Sonali Dev, was at our wedding along with a few other romance authors and like romance people. And she was like, yeah, you like that, our table is so much fun, except we had this random guy sit down. And I was like, guy? At first I was like, that's Sarah's husband. Like, that's Sarah Wendell's husband. And she's like, no, I know him. Like, there was just this guy sitting there. And I'm like, there was no guy at your table. It was like one spouse and all women. And so she's like, well, here. And she pulled up the picture and I looked at him and I was like, I have no idea who this is. Like, I have no idea who this man is. And so I brought it home and I showed it to Kai, my husband, and he was like, I don't know who this is. And we looked through all of our other photos, and maybe like our professional photos will have him in it, but he is not in any other photo.
Oh,
so we were like,
he was good.
He was a sneaky wedding crasher.
He was sneaky. And I was just like, damn, like how?
Leave no record.
How did you do that? Like, you were really good at it. We would never have known except for this one random photo
That's so
that
funny.
at the beginning of the wedding someone snapped, and they were like, and then after a while he got up and like left and went to somewhere else, and I was like, what other table did he go to? And nobody at the table could remember. I was like, I need to know. Like,
this is a mystery that I would like us
wild.
to
I
do.
know. I was like, did he say a name? And they're like, we don't remember. I was like, guys. Well,
How can you get your revenge if no one tells you who they are? That's crazy.
I will find out. I don't know who I have to talk to find out who this guy is. I'm gonna find out, and then
if he was that
watch
good
out
at
at their
being sneaky,
wedding.
maybe he was just like truly random and didn't even like come with anybody that you know. That would be wild.
Yeah, like he's just some guy who like wandered in off the street. I don't know. That would truly be wild. And then I can't blame anyone for that.
Yeah.
But if someone brought him, I'm gonna blame them, and I'm gonna have my vengeance at some point. I don't know when it's gonna land, but it's gonna happen.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, wait till you get married, wait till you have a baby shower, wait till you have something going on in your life. I am bringing a
She's just gonna pop up and she's gonna be in all the pictures, not just one.
I was like, we will take our moms with us. Like, we will take whoever we have to that party.
I love it.
That's amazing.
Very frustrating. I don't understand.
It is. They stole your free alcohol and your free food. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't free. I'm sure it wasn't free for Alisha and Kai.
Yeah, it wasn't free for us. It was free for them, whoever took it. And so we'll see. I'll find out.
They haven't read your books. They don't know. They don't know. Their brain works.
You're like, I'm really good at plotting, okay?
Yeah. Like,
just wait.
Don't you worry. I'm very creative and I will find my way. So joke's on you.
I have to say that when I saw your wedding pictures and stuff in your wedding like dress, and it made me think of Partners in Crime and the like surprises that were in that wedding trousseau. Would you wear a sari that you knew had real jewels on it?
No, not in a million years. I can tell you, like, I don't wear a ton of jewelry. And I get like, I'm always anxious when I'm wearing anything with anything in it. So yeah, that would have freaked me out if something like real had been actually in my gown or something.
I told Megan, I was like, if I woke up on my wedding day and found out that like every rhinestone or whatever that was on was actual diamond, I would have been like,
And I would have had
like,
and been like, oh my God, what if one fell off? Like,
I would be like panicking the entire time. And it's actually, I mean, I probably should have, but like, it's not ridiculous for like our clothes to be really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite possible that if something is sewn in there, you just be like, oh, this like skirt's really heavy. Like my skirt was like 30 or 40 pounds by itself.
Wow.
So it could have easily, like, you could swap some stones out here and there and nobody would know.
Right.
But yeah, no, I don't think
who would know? Naveen's mom would know.
Yeah.
Video chat.
Hey, okay. Got you.
Lady, missed her calling.
Yeah. She's like, oh, okay. Got a lot of teeth suddenly. So yeah. But I I could never. I get very anxious around anytime anything is like, real.
I mean, very, very similar. I mean, I don't mind wearing like a ring, but when I read when I read
Picturing the
Think That,
dress.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I would die a little bit. Yeah. It would be rough.
So I was curious about Mira. Well, I mean, they both, Mira and Naveen, have like some dysfunctional family dynamics, and like she's got a lot of like toxicity in her family, which is basically the reason why she cut them all off at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about how her character development came through for you and still was satisfying in a way when a lot of her issues with her family can't really be resolved because these people are passed away or in jail or whatever. Like, because I know in a lot of times, especially in romance, like a lot of these loose ends kind of end up being able to be tied up. And for her, that was
Mm-hmm.
impossible. And it still felt really satisfying. So I was curious if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mira's whole arc is that she's not just desperate for a husband. I think she's desperate for a family because feels like she's never really had one. So I think the satisfying part at the end was like not just getting married or like having a husband or a boyfriend or whatever. I think for her it was realizing like, okay, my best friend is my family, like Naveen's mom is my family. Like now I have like it's family that she had all this time and she just didn't realize that they were her family. So I think for her that was like she's had these long relationships in her life with her best friend, like with Christine's husband, like and she hasn't really realized until then like, oh, this is my family, like this is my chosen family, but it's my family. I think a lot of times in life, you don't get closure off of traumas that your parents especially, put you through when you were younger. And so that's just something that you have to learn to either live with or, figure out some way or don't live with. Yeah. Or like, or deal with your feelings one way or another. Right. So I think her struggle with that is something that she has to go through. And I think, at the end, I think there is like a moment of hope. Like she has that second, everyone's read the book, right?
Yeah.
I can say, yeah. I was like, how spoilery can I get? But like at the end where her sister like threatens Naveen, I like thought that was really impactful. I thought for Mira, that would be like a really impactful moment because that is like big sister behavior. Like if you mess with her, I'm gonna, cut your tongue out, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
As like violent as she is, like she was like, oh wow, like maybe I'll have a sister at some point, and I think that does give some satisfaction.
I think Megan and I, when we talked about it, were thinking too that Mira, like of her whole family, she's like the only one who was like, I am not gonna live in this world. Like I don't want to be part of this situation. And her sister says at one point that she tried to go straight, but that it just didn't take. And so I'm in my head, I felt like she might have been protecting her sister and trying to be a good sister by keeping her distance because she, I mean, it seemed clear that she knew Mira was not up for the kind of drama that she, that like happens in her life. Which is sad, but it's still someone caring for you the best way they can, even if it's not, the ideal.
Right. And I think she was also, the sister was also probably hurt because like when she did try to go to her for help, Mira really, she was in college, whatever, she was a kid, but she like shut her out and was like, I don't want anything to do with our family anymore or you. And so I think for her, I think that was like a really painful moment, even though she wasn't doing anything criminal at the moment. And so, I think that broke her a little bit. And she was like, well, okay, fine. Then, if you don't want anything to do with me, I don't want anything to do with you. And it's like, kind of I mean, I have two sisters. So, you know, I feel like that's a pretty sisterly response. Like, all right, fine then. Like, you know, if you don't want me, I don't want you, and I'm out. And so, you know, it bounced for that reason. But I do think she was trying to protect her too. I think that older sister urge is strong and hard to ignore.
This whole family seems like people who just don't really tell each other things.
Yeah, yeah.
They do not
That's pretty
clarify.
common in a lot of families. Yeah, where it's like, oh, you could just talk about stuff and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And you know,
Well,
sometimes that
especially like
talking
even
part.
that moment when she's like, I didn't just like leave you, like dad literally kicked me out. And Mira's
Yeah.
like shocked. Like she had no idea that
Mhm.
that is what happened.
Yeah.
And so all these things that she's thinking in her head about how things were, like none of it is really how things were.
Yeah. It's like you know, two people can experience kind of the same reality and come away with very different, especially when it's like a age gap between them, even if it's a few years. Like
Mhm.
you have two very different interpretations of how things went down.
Yeah.
Well, things that maybe you weren't privy to.
Right. Yeah. Or there's things that maybe you didn't know about. Yeah.
I think Naveen and his brother, and also Naveen's mom and her dad,
Mhm.
were also like they were also people who had relationships that were a little bit like sticky,
Yeah.
but they could salvage, you know, like they were able to talk through things or to like
Yeah.
come to some kind of did you purposely write like a contrasting family dynamic there that way, or did it just kind of work out that way?
I think it kind of worked out that way. I think I don't know if they're contrasting so much as like different like parts of the spectrum of no contact sort of thing. Like for
Right.
example, Naveen's mom and you know grandfather are very contentious with each other and they're kind of on their way to never speaking to each other again or only speaking to each other when you know the kids
Necessary.
are involved. Yeah,
Yeah.
when the grandkids are involved or the kids are involved. So I think, you know, if that relationship was continued on that path, I think it would probably go the same way where eventually it would be like a no contact type of relationship. So I don't think it's so much contrasting. I think it's just different levels of, you know, fighting between relatives and how if nobody takes like a step forward or says like, okay, I'm sorry, you know, it can go very awry and it goes, you know, and so Mira's family is probably like the extreme example of that and
Right.
how like nobody talking to each other and having these petty fights can just break it apart.
Yeah, I felt like Naveen was like I'm like he was the one that went to therapy, so I guess he was the one who had to be like, you need to talk.
Yeah.
You need to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Also, Mira, you need to explain yourself when you're, you know,
And then has to kind of tell himself like, okay, like this is like we're not going down this path with me and my brother. Like we gotta either resolve it or come to some kind of resolution for
Yeah.
us to move forward in our lives separately or together, one or the other. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It was just like in limbo.
Naveen's therapist like should get a, you know, raise.
Right.
She really did.
Heavy lifting
Yeah,
happening.
she did a lot of heavy lifting on that guy in the few years that they were broken up. So.
I also did really like Mira's kind of self-awareness after having conversations with her Emmy about
Mhm.
how she just ghosted her and how she's realizing like, oh my God, that's exactly what my sister did to me. And I've been so mad at her
Mhm.
this entire time. And then I
Yeah.
turned around and did it to somebody else and like didn't even
Yeah.
realize,
Right.
and I liked that she was that she didn't miss that. Like that really like hit her when Emmy said that to her and she thought, "Oh my God, like you're totally right. I'm so sorry." And that's
Yeah.
not the easiest thing to do all the time to apologize that way. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think sometimes we perpetuate like cycles on someone else, even if it's something we hate for ourselves. So
Mhm.
I do like that she got like that realization because I think it's much needed sometimes in order to never do it again. You know, you have to know that
Yeah.
you did it.
Well, Mira was so like used to like putting her feelings away and tucking
Mhm.
things like where she
Yeah,
didn't have to look
don't
at
talk
them.
about it. Yeah.
That yeah, I think that this 24-hour like caper really
Mhm.
like brought her face to face with a lot of things that she had been trying to avoid for a long time. It was kind of
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that like minute by minute, her realizations sort of grow. And I really liked writing someone who, you know, is not perfect at the beginning or the end, but, you know, has come somewhere along the way.
Yeah. I loved that she and Naveen like only did the escape room to like by themselves because she was like so extra.
Competitive.
Yeah.
So that she
She's so
like the friends
competitive,
got
yeah.
worried.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay.
Like we can't do it with anyone else. But it makes
That made me
sense.
I love it. So we have some questions we always ask everyone we interview, and mine
Okay.
is, what is your favorite trope to read?
I really love friends to lovers. I think that that's like really, I like that switch where someone realizes like, oh, I've liked them all along. You know, I think that's
Mhm.
really sweet. But anytime there's like only one bad, I'm all over it. I love that.
See, on this book, they were like,
Love it.
Megan and I were laughing because Naveen was trying so hard to be like, you know, we only have the one room because they didn't want to be like separated because danger. But then he's like, you're vulnerable and tired, and this isn't a good time. But as soon as she gives the green
He's
light,
like, no, I
he's
think
like,
it's a great time. He's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
it's
good.
like actually.
he's like, while I was at Walmart, I went
I
and
got
got
these
condoms,
condoms,
and I was
luckily.
like, oh.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
I was like, I love a man who's prepared.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's like thinking ahead. You never know.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Hope springs eternal.
Yes.
The question I usually ask is more about your writing, and it's if we were a fly on the wall when you were in the middle of your like deep in your writing process, what would we
Mhm.
see?
Oh my gosh, with this one, you probably would have seen me like about to scribble on the walls. Like it really was like you know, they're always sunny, like the meme with
Right, the
Charlie in
red
front of
strings and the
yeah, the whiteboard. Like it was like it looked like a crime scene in here. So so that's what you would have seen. Like I got like I don't remember where somebody moved out of our apartment building and they left behind like large rolls of architecture paper,
Oh,
like giant rolls of them. And so I took two, and at the time, Kai was like, "What are you gonna ever use those for?" And I was like, "They're great as
he's like,
bolsters
I
for the
need
bed,
them.
so the cat doesn't get under the bed." And that was like initially what I used them for, and they worked great. And then when this book came along, I was like, "Oh no!" And I pulled it out and I started like unraveling it, and I was like writing timelines on it and putting it up like everywhere. And
That's
so it
amazing.
came in really handy. So I was using like drafting paper for this book.
I mean, you needed straight lines. You
Yeah.
needed straight.
It was like it was intense. So
That's
yeah, for this
awesome.
book that otherwise I feel like I'm like everything is usually pretty self-contained in my brain. Like I'm you know, I might have like a whiteboard and some timelines on that, but you know, otherwise everything is just in there and it's just me in front of a computer. No like utter silence, no music.
Okay.
Nice. We had somebody tell us that they like talk to themselves the whole time.
Oh, I can't
And I
do
was
What's that?
that.
I can't remember who that was, but well, they
they
said they
were
like
like,
read their dialogue back to themselves a lot.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like
Like-
commiserated with that because I write book reviews a lot, and a lot of times at the end, like I'll write the whole thing and then I like read it out loud to myself because I'm like,
Oh.
did I use the same word too many times? Did I, you know what I mean? And like it
I
really does
do
help me.
I do read it aloud like in the last draft or something. Like I'll read the whole book aloud to myself because that's how I catch like a lot of, you know, typos and stuff. Maybe something copy editor didn't catch or spell check didn't catch. But yeah, I will read it out loud at the end, but not while I'm writing. That would cause like great confusion for me.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
So that's it, I think.
Yeah.
Tell
awesome.
the people on Instagram where to find you and what you've got coming up next.
Yes.
So you can find me at alisharai.com. I'm on TikTok at the real Alisha Rai and on Instagram at Alisha Rai Writes. And I'm mostly in those places. So if you're looking for me, you can find me there. And my next book is out in March and it's called While You Were Dreaming. It's a YA, it's my first YA. And I'm working on right now the sequel to Partners in Crime. So
Oh,
Fun.
yeah.
Exciting.
Can you tell us who?
I know. Can you tell
Who
us
do you think
anything?
it is? Who do you want it to be?
Oh my goodness, options.
I mean,
Uh,
I
I
really
kinda
like
want
Emmy.
Yeah.
Oh, you like Emmy? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
All right. Noted.
Oh no, you're not gonna tell us? That's
Is it her-
evil.
Is it her sister?
It's the sister.
Oh,
Oh, this is good
awesome.
too.
Yeah. So
This is very good.
um
I
so
feel
yeah,
like she would be a hard nut to crack. So
she's
Yeah.
a very hard nut to crack. Yeah, but
That's
hopefully it's
fun.
right now it's shaping up to be like another heist, so it'll be another kind of adventure
oh,
book.
fun.
So we'll
Well,
see.
see,
We'll
Emmy
see how
can
it
have
goes.
a heist.
Yeah,
You can't
Emmy
do
can
a
have
second
multiple
chance.
heists.
You
Yeah.
can't do a second chance with Joyce because Joyce,
Right.
I think
Yes.
Joyce is done. But
Yeah.
Oh, that was Emmy. That was Emmy's.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. She's done. She's burned. But we can. Yeah, I would love to write Emmy's book. I am hoping that that's down the pipeline after this one. But yeah, it's the sisters right now, and her hero is not someone anyone's met. So, but it'll be very exciting.
Hey,
Yeah.
Fun.
awesome.
I love it. Is it in Vegas too? Like she's still based out of?
Tangentially, yes, like parts
Oh,
of it.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'm
Well-
very nosy, but
We're very excited about that.
Mhm.
There'll be more details about it later. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed
Yeah,
reading
thanks
the
for having
book.
me. Yeah, oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. I hope everyone liked it too.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yes, definitely. And if you have any questions for Alisha, I'm sure you can find her in all those places she just mentioned. And we'll see everyone in December.
You bet.
Yay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.